Hi Aaron.
I
Hi everybody. I don't know how many people are checking in today, but oh my god, did you check out the session, the disastrous session I had yesterday? Or rather this afternoon. Was it this? This was
yeah,
this
this
afternoon.
afternoon actually, yeah.
I am so
So much
sorry.
stress that you've gone,
Ah man, it was so
that you've
bad.
lost track of time. Huh?
Yeah man, it was so bad today because what happened was, I mean, okay, bad. This is no fault of everybody that we had today. It's really a problem with my device. I obviously bit off a bit more than I could chew, and sort of I just so for anyone who did not watch it, it's actually still on my Twitch playlist for obvious reasons, right? But what happened was that we had this Zhongli, which is this new character in Genshin, just came out, and we got really hyped into it, and we were like, oh hey, um, what would be cool? Let's do a thing. Let's talk about Zhongli. Let's talk about what drew what drew your attention to this character and all that kind of stuff. I got a bunch of friends together, and we just did that together. We thought it'd be fun. Um, and I, I didn't think too much of it. But the fact of the matter was, my device is not made up for it, to keep up with that kind of shit. Basically, what happened was, it
Well,
yeah. Sorry, I mean, like, yeah,
yeah,
basically, it just lagged the crap out. I had this wonderful setup, which I was really happy with. If you saw the scenes and everything else, it's more classier than the one we have right now by a lot. A lot of stuff went into it, and I was like, oh yeah, I did videos and like, oh, everything else was like super nice and all that kind of stuff. I was like switching scenes, making it all pretty like and all that kind of stuff, and my PC lagged to high heaven. It just couldn't stand, like, between having the game on, the VLC players at the background on a high def video, background music, Chrome open, OBS open, Discord open. My entire system was like so much. It was literally like a freeze frame animation for like Genshin. You get to watch stuff that you never get to watch because like there was just a bunch of these mid-range frames that you never properly get to see under normal circumstances if you're playing.
for a moment I thought whether you were actually just showing screenshots of the game or you were actually trying to pull. So that was quite funny. And I was watching it for a bit, and at that point where I think the girls were using their zhonglis to huddle around you, I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't really see it, but I hope it's working. Yeah.
It was really bad. Oh god! But hey, thanks, Aaron. Thank you so much for joining me today. Out of your busy schedule and all that. There are very few people I would absolutely love to have this conversation with, and I mean today we're going to be talking about gacha and just earlier today during the session during the afternoon, right? I had the we did that whole when the girls were huddling up around my character. That was supposed to be a quote unquote like sort of a ritual catalyst. You know how some people, like, when they're rolling for stuff, they have this like shrine for good luck kind of thing.
Oh, they do it all the. I
Yeah,
mean, a
yeah.
lot of people do it. I do it myself.
I,
So one of the games that I play,
yeah.
it's like Dragalia Lost. So there's this thing where it will flash different to show you whether you're getting a 4 star or 5 star kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I will shake my phone because it starts from blue, which is three
Yeah.
stars only. It will
Yeah.
turn to gold, which is 4 stars, and five for rainbows. So I'll
Yeah.
shake it. So then it's like I'll shake it into a rainbow kind of thing. So I think everyone does have their little, quirks that they try to do in order to try to be like, or some people are like, I'll pull exactly at midnight because that's the best time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a crazy thing, but like a lot of us, we have our own rituals, right? Like
Yeah.
when it comes to these kind of things, and it's a bit weird because uh, uh, RNG is such a major factor in a lot of these kind of games, and
Yeah.
we do what we can to quote unquote have that little bit of extra luck. But that I guess.
RNG is chaos, right?
Correct. But
RNG is chaos, so you want to be able to control that chaos by
yeah,
you remember what was good. What did I do at that exact point when I got
correct.
that
That
one character I wanted with one pull,
correct. The
right?
illusion that you have some control over the chaos, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but interestingly enough, that is exactly the impetus for today's topic, which is about gacha games, or at least games with randomization in their monetization system, their core monetization
Hmm.
systems, and a large part of this discussion, and the ecosystem around them, right? Because a
Right.
large part of what sort of inspired this conversation is sort of how everyone was. There was this huge with Genshin's popularity and the way it was marketed. It was this massive game that everyone was started to play and talk about in a very short span of time. Um,
Yeah.
and everyone was just like, oh yeah, and a lot of people who weren't familiar with gacha games suddenly just got into gacha games, and then a lot of people who didn't usually deal with like randomness in the games that they were paying for suddenly were spending a lot of money that they didn't have or didn't expect to, and fell into the
Yeah.
gacha traps, and sort of like, oh my god, like this thing is just horrible and whatever else there is. Um,
Yes,
I,
there was a lot of hate at some point about
right,
the fact that Genshin's trying to bridge mobile gamers and console gamers and PC gamers at the same time. And PC and console gamers, I mean, they say it's like, they have never been exposed to gachas. They
correct,
have never been exposed to, if I want a character, which ideally, because, for a console gamer, you pay $70, $80, and you get a full. You're supposed to get a full game.
right,
Nowadays, you don't.
right,
But with gacha, it's like, wait, you mean I actually have to buy a chance? No, I actually have to buy a chance of getting a character that I want to use.
right.
Yeah. So
But
that's the frustration I think
yeah,
some
but
people do end up getting.
yeah, but to put the full discussion on context, right? A lot of all
Hmm.
gacha games, I don't know of an exception if there is one, but like all gacha games are free to play, right? So that means you go in free, it's free for you to play for as long as you want, and as long as you resist the gacha pool, so to speak, you don't have to spend $1. It's literally a free to play game. Um, I myself, like this afternoon, if you saw, the fact is, I'm a free to play player on Genshin. Hashtag free to play, you know, that kind of thing. But I have shit luck. I have been having shit luck when it comes to Genshin. Genshin is really not my best friend. I think somehow
Right.
the developers know that I'm not going to give them a single dollar, and like they decide like, no, this guy's gonna get shit luck.
I mean, I think that becomes something that, it's the randomization, right? You come back
Right,
to it because I have two accounts for
right,
Genshin.
right,
I have my main account, which is on my PC/mobile account,
right,
because Genshin gives you two options. The other one is on console, which is a PS4.
right.
And I actually got Childer with about 20 pulls. I got Tartaglia in 20 pulls on my completely free PS4 account, because making the purchase on the PS4 is a lot more of a hassle. So at the same time, on the flip side, which is I wouldn't even call it a whale. They've got different terms for people who spend money, right? You've got your dolphin, which is
Right.
smaller than a whale, and then you've got your tadpole, which is like, you pay for maybe a monthly pass or something like that.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
yeah,
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like that smaller one. Most of the time, most people use the terms use fish as a term, so they tend to be quite consistent. Yeah, but yes, before anyone complains, a whale, I know a whale is not a fish. That's not the point.
it's a mammal. Oh yeah, it's a mammal.
It's a
But yeah,
mammal. Yeah, but
yeah,
that is not the point. Like when we're talking about like we were talking about whales, and then you have like
yeah.
uh, uh, I'm not sure what's the in between. I think that some people use sharks, but I'm not sure. Then like slightly below that
That's
is
a
like,
bit rare. Yeah.
yeah, correct. And then
On my side, I've met the ones who've gone beyond whales, so we just call them leviathans.
oh really? The
Yeah,
term
yeah.
is that a fan thing? Is like or do you hear that actively as an industry term?
It's not an industry term. I think it's something that's been growing sort of like on the Reddit communities, where you're going like,
Uh,
what's bigger than a whale? What's gone further than a whale? Because they've spent like maybe like $2,000, $3,000 just to get one character, which not all the time, but there have been cases where people have actually put that much money into just trying to get a single character in certain gacha games, because of this whole random factor, and the odds are so low.
hmm.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, at least on my side, the ones that I'm familiar with, because I've been in the industry, at least when it comes to randomization for a while.
Mm-hmm.
The terms that we use is like whale. I think some people use killer whale for the one upwards, which is kind of weird because killer whales are not that big. Then
Yeah.
like slightly below, I think some people use the one I know that a lot of people use the smallest one. Yeah, you're right, dolphins. Which once
Yeah.
again, but dolphins sort of follow that trait with whales because they're all sea-based mammals.
Yeah.
But somehow, somewhere along the lines, someone decided to like, hey, you know what? Screw it. Let's not follow this pattern. We go one step down, and it becomes minnows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and I like the size difference between a dolphin and a minnow is like massively huge, and like you're wondering to yourself like, did who came up with this chart? You know, it's like it's like where what's that space in between?
I think coming from someone with a marketing background and stuff like that, I think it's the player basis reaction to people calling for sales to call it a cash cow. So it's like, yeah, we're not going to use a land based mammal. We're going to find a sea based mammal because
You don't
water
want to be
is free.
yeah. Let's not be too
And we're
offensive. Let's not call
thirsty,
yeah,
right?
correct. Let's not call them cows. Like, yeah, exactly. Let's not call them
Yeah,
cows. We'll appeal to the
yeah.
thirst, the native thirst culture. Yeah, these
I,
bunch of
I
marketing
guess
fellas.
it gets down to the fact that the whale is technically the largest mammal on Earth, so
Yeah, I
they've
suppose.
got that kind of clout to spend. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose that would be the case. Like instead of like, and then somewhere along the lines, marketing was going, yeah, some guy in marketing had the foresight of knowing that the whole thirst culture is going to form up, and just like, yeah, we'll this will make sense in about 10 years.
Water,
Yeah, this
yeah.
will make sense in about
Thirst,
10 years.
water, mammal, large,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Whale sounds
Exactly.
perfect, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. This will make sense in 10 years. You'll thank me for this. You'll thank me for this. And then back
Yeah.
inside some corner of
Yeah.
Reddit, he's like quietly trying to embed everyone's psyche with the idea of thirst
Industry
culture.
buzzword.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Industry
industry
buzzwords,
buzzword.
seeding
Yeah.
all these industry buzzwords. But yeah, I mean, yeah, and coming back to the topic, so what we want to talk about today, and what I really want to talk about today, was about the fact that gacha systems are not new. Fact of the matter is that gacha systems are forever old, right? I was first introduced to it. Just to give a little bit of history, I was first introduced to gacha systems through a really really old game that I think a lot of you guys don't know about. It was called Puzzle and
Mhm.
Dragons. It was a puzzle. As the name implies, right?
Mhm.
It was a freaking puzzle game. It was a Japanese puzzle game,
Right.
as most gacha games are, and it was one of those kind of games, right? That you, how to put this? Basically, they had two main monetizations, right?
Mhm.
The way it would work is that they would either a monetize you by getting characters,
Mhm.
sorry, I need to take a step back. This is bad presentation. Please excuse me. We're all trying. I'm still trying to figure out how I was supposed to do this a little bit, and there's going to be some hiccups along the way. But basically, the way Puzzle and Dragons work is that you go on this adventure through a dungeon. Uh, that's why the dragons part, where you have this bunch. It's a match 3 game essentially. And
Right.
what you do is every time you match a bunch, it has this elemental stones, and every time you match the elemental stones, you trigger like one charge, and like your these elemental creatures that you have in one row will deal attacks accordingly. So let's say, for
Right.
example, if you go into a dungeon with a team of 2 water and 3 fire, for example,
Mhm.
and you match fire. So the 3 fire will attack, but the water will do nothing. So every time you build a team, it will be like trying to figure out how to do all this kind of thing.
Right.
And it was a pretty good game, by the way. I still actually want to go back and play it. The problem, there are a lot of problems with this thing, but yeah, it is a game that's like 10 years old. I think it came out back in 2012 at this point. Yeah, so
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so 10 years is a bit of exaggeration, but you get the idea. So
Yeah.
and the game basically had two main ways. One of them is in the traditional gacha sense, you roll for characters,
Mhm.
and the other one is that you would roll, and the other monetization
Recharge, right?
was
Probably.
oh no, not recharge. Recharge was a very small part of it, but the other part of it was actually
Okay.
the continue for the levels. They actually were selling
Yeah,
continues.
that's what I meant by recharge,
Okay,
like
okay.
recharging a stamina to be able to play longer, right?
Oh
In
no
that
no no no
sense.
no no no. It's you
Oh,
go into a dungeon, you die, you pay to continue.
yeah, yeah.
You pay to continue.
Basically, life extend. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
No no
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's not pay stamina. It's pay to continue inside this dungeon instance kind of thing. So so and keep in mind that this game was first done in like 2012, and so it was on tail end of Facebook games, and uh, frankly, before that, when we were talking about games like RPG games and all that kind of stuff, right? Facebook games had a lot of had a lot more. In many ways, Facebook games had a lot more production value. But
Yeah.
what happened was Puzzle and Dragons did what a lot of things really really well, which is they gave it was the first mobile game that had at least that hit our side of the industry where they were earning um, like I think it was millions in a day. I can't remember off the top of my head the actual number. It's been so long, but they were literally earning millions in USD in a day, and all of it was either from gacha or continues. Now,
Yeah.
keep in mind also as well, Puzzle Dragons is really really old, and they had a few things which are surprisingly questionable by today's standards. I feel, and once again,
Right.
this is personal opinion on this one, because
Mm-hmm.
um, they had a lot of levels that were intentionally designed in such a way that you wouldn't be able to pass unless you actually paid to pass it. Like as in you needed the continues to pass it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one of those kind of games, which is really interesting and a bit crazy in its own way, right? By today's standards, especially. Like, can you imagine if like today, right, you were like given all the problems that's been coming out with Genshin and all that kind of stuff, um, they would have like they were to do a boss, right, that you couldn't win unless you had specifically gacha characters. The whole internet would just explode.
It's actually I mean, I think that's for. I mean, coming back to Genshin in that sense, that's why they made the traveler be able to be Anemo, which is wind, and Geo, which is earth,
Right.
because there are no other free characters that you can get. They've
Right.
they've kind of padded you quite well by giving you characters from just normal playing without even touching
Yeah.
the gacha at all. That covers all the elements, so
Yeah.
that reduces that chance of people having an issue with, oh, I cannot clear this because I don't have a character
Yeah.
that's beneficial for this particular fight. Yeah.
I think that really is sort of uh, sort of a credit to Genshin, where they sort of designed this with all these elements in mind, where you don't
Mm-hmm.
and pardon the pun on elements, but the fact is, like, they didn't sort of just here's a bunch of characters, here's randomly a bunch of stuff, then like go figure kind of thing. They really, it was a very deliberate, like, oh, your main character starts with wind, and then I'm going to give you a ice and lightning guy, I'm going to give you a fire guy. We're just going to do a bunch of stuff using these things first,
They
and then
gave us Amber, which isn't overly useful except for
no, actually,
exploration.
yeah, yeah,
So
and correct, and but that's the whole point, right? They were like, hey,
mhm.
we're going to give you this bunch of stuff that's going to be just useful generally for a very very long time. You're going to be able to get past most of the game without any issues. Here they are, kind of thing. And then
But if you want to truly enjoy the game, then
yeah,
obviously if you just spend a little money, then the
correct,
game will
correct.
be a lot more enjoyable. Yeah.
Correct. Right, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't say that the game's enjoyability, if that's really a word. That's not really a word, but anyway, the the,
Right.
the entertainment value of the game, right? I don't think it's
Yeah.
completely hinged on gacha characters. You don't have to have Venti or Zhongli or Diluc or Jean or any of those characters, right? To really really enjoy the game.
I think in some conversations it comes back down to uh then we split it in terms of that idea of do you want to play the game as a game, or do you actually want to enjoy sort of like the scenery with
Right,
your character being the scenery in that sense. So
correct,
that whole waifu and husbando thing,
correct,
which is usually the main draw that leads people into wanting to pay for gachas.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but yeah, but once again, coming back to the whole gacha thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, if we were to look back in the day for Puzzle and Dragons and stuff like that, when they first like when sort of the idea of gachaing for characters itself, to be fair, historically speaking, does come from a time well before Puzzle and Dragons, right? But Puzzle and Dragons was like this massive milestone in at least in the mobile games industry that said, yeah, but the gacha games can become this huge thing that people can make a massive living out of and stuff like that.
Okay.
And once again, I just want to emphasize one more time that Puzzle and Dragons is still a fun game. But if you ask me today whether I'll ever go back to Puzzle and Dragons, the quick answer is no. The game is super bloated right now. By today, after like 8 years of operations, it's super duper bloated, and it is it has some of the most like insane systems, like ridiculously hardcore systems. Like just for reference, right now nowadays people like oh, you get a dupe, a duplicate of a character, right? You immediately, without question, 100% immediately without question, you would get an upgrade of, like, say, for that character. This is true for some of the most popular and top gacha games out there. Every time you get a duplicate, you'll get an upgrade. Puzzle and Dragons, it's not a confirmed thing. It is a percentage. Like, you have a chance to increase one of its skills by sacrificing this duplicate. So you get a 5-star character. You know, it's like you go and throw one in. It's like a 2% chance of raising one of its skills by 1 level. How many levels does each skill have? 5, or is it 10? I think it's 10. Yeah. And then and then how many skills does each character have? 3 or 4. And then you're like, great. So how many dupes do you need? Do the math. Yeah. Congratulations.
But coming back from when you say do the math, do you know like the rough approximate costing of each pool, or the percentages for Puzzle and Dragons for a character?
Oh, I absolutely don't. Not off the top of my head. It's been too long. But I can honestly tell you it's not easy, because you have to understand, like, for most gacha games, especially if it's gacha games that's been running around for like a year or 2 or 3, right? That pool gets ridiculously large. So the odds of getting so the odds of getting specific duplicates, right, goes down really, really fast. You know?
That's true. That's why they have things like limited banners where, you know, they do things which they call rate ups to ensure that, you know, this is your best chance. This is when you should spend your money if you really want to improve said character or get said character in that kind of thing. But because my mention was because I believe that nowadays there seems to be sort of like a standard market rate for gacha pools, which is sort of I think it feels like the ratio tends to be like 1 to about 2 or 3 USD, like one pool. So about there, like, cause I think it's also because it's tagged to I play mostly on Apple, so I play on iOS, and because of Apple's pricing, it's sort of forced a lot of them to do about a 10 pool is equivalent to about 24 USD.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've seen that reflected across most games where that's about the average price you're looking to pay. It doesn't usually go more than that, and it doesn't go lower than that at the same time.
Okay, so then just using that as a reference point, right? That means like on average, most of my friends who got Zhongli that I've seen sort of this aggregate value of members who got Zhongli on my timeline, right? Most of them have got their first Zhongli around like the 40th, roughly 40th pool.
Yeah.
So by that definition, you're looking at something along the lines of like
120 Singapore.
About $120 Singapore, or about $140 Singapore. And then that would translate to roughly about times 3. You're looking about 500 ringgit Malaysian.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the kind of money that we're looking at to get sort of reasonable average of like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get this character kind of thing.
But at the same time, you have people who get it in 1 pool, and you have people who get it in 90 pools, right? So you've got your percentile and your large for that too. Yeah.
Right. Which is one of the things that like I think it's fair to mention. Like, there are a lot of people who complain about randomness in games, especially in gachas and stuff like that. But the fact is, right, your luck can go into 2 extremes, right? you can get
Yes.
you can be such a shit luck, right? That on the tail end, on the far end of it, right, you could spend like thousands and thousands of dollars. Like some very poor sad sort on Fate Grand Order, which I've heard like spent like there's this one guy that spent like $3,000 in USD or something like that to get this one character he wanted, but he couldn't even get it. And the guys at Delightworks, which is the developer for Grand Order, just basically say, "I'm sorry, this is how the system works. Too bad." But basically there's the tail end or far tail end of it, and you could be on the crazier end of it, which is you could be a pure free to play player and like have obscene luck and then press one button.
Get it in one random pool.
Correct. Like one ticket, poop, one free ticket, poop, get on the spot. So
I'm sure you've seen a lot of that on Facebook, right? Where people tend to exude, and then you feel like, oh, am I the outlier because these people have gotten the character that they want in like 1 or 10 pulls only, whereas I've spent 76 or even 90 pulls and then I get it, kind of thing.
Right, which is once again, which is one of the crazier parts of it all, right? Like, to be fair, like that's exactly what made me pull. Like, I still remember it was like when Zhongli first came out. I think it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I can't remember off the top of my head. But basically, like I had a whole bunch of my friends who were like, "Oh, I got it on my 30th pull, like right on my like 20th pull and stuff like that." And then I was like, "Holy crap, this is so exciting! I'm gonna go in," because I was looking forward to the character anyway, right? Then I just ran in and just go like, "Oh, I'm gonna pull. Then like, oh, fiki. Ah, fish balls. So basically,
I think we were mentioning just before we started was like that idea of FOMO. So gacha really preys on that feeling of FOMO, and Facebook and having a pool of friends who play the same gacha games doesn't help at all, because that makes you being like, it could just be the next one. I could get it in the next pool, right?
I know exactly what you mean. But look, to be fair to the whole thing, right? So like, this is the thing. Like, I didn't want it. It wasn't a pure FOMO kind of thing. If you want to be a free to play player, you need to know how to control your FOMO. But the fact of the matter is that Zhongli to me is a character that solves a major problem for me. I was just complaining to a couple of friends the other day. I said, you know what I really want in Genshin? I want a system whereby if you mine enough, like as in if you hit mines enough, like ores enough, eventually at some point your character gets good at hitting ores, and they need to hit it less to break them. That's all I want. I don't even want it to make it so that it's a one hit, open. I don't even mind if they don't do that. But I want it to at least be progressively better. Because it's really annoying where your character has auto movements, and then you need like 3 hits to hit to break open, say for example a core lapis or mineral deposit. And usually by the time your claymore users, right? By the time your claymore users got to the third hit, it's already moved forward so much, he's missed the target.
Right.
And then you have to turn around and do another hit. And I'm like, holy crap! And then you have to repeat this for every ore that you want to try and get, which is so freaking annoying.
It's still better than using swords or polearms where they don't even do any damage to the ore you're talking about.
Correct, but this is a relative term, but the fact of the matter is that like it gets really tiring by the time. Like, it's fine if like you do it for 500 times. It's still bearable some degree when you do it for the 500th time. But can you imagine like 20 years down the, like, I'm not saying 20 years, but rather like a year down the road, do you still want to be doing this? Like, please, for Christ's sake, like, just give me a progressive system. I don't mind if you don't give it to me straight off the bat, but give it to me on a progressive system so that at least I don't have to do this. And then I watched the Zhongli video, and I was like, Zhongli has this one move which just breaks all the ores around him in like just one move. Just press and hold it.
I think I saw that in I can't remember if it was your stream or I saw that somewhere where someone was just running around and they were using his skill to just shatter the ores.
Correct, exactly. Which is exactly. And it's an AoE, mind you, it's the entire area within that space, kind of thing. It's so freaking convenient. I was like, holy crap, I want that. I don't even care. I don't even care if his DPS sucks. I don't even care if he's useless for anything else. I just want him for that.
Okay. Okay. Then getting back on the fact that you haven't gotten him and you didn't get him in
Yeah,
the fact that he's a 0.6% chance, right? If
yeah,
based on a single pool, or
yeah.
it's a guaranteed out of if you do 90 pools, you're not guaranteed on the 90th pool. You're actually
Right.
guaranteed on the 180th pool, which coming from other games that I've been on, I think previously you just showed to some of our viewers, you showed the Dragalia Lost one.
Yeah.
Uh, I just segue a moment because when I started Dragalia Lost, they didn't have sparking. Sparking is it's a new term. I think I'm not sure whether it started from like Grand Blue Fantasy,
Hmm.
but I believe Grand Blue Fantasy had this thing where once you hit a certain amount, you can actually, which is about 300 pulls or 400 pulls, um,
Sorry.
you can exchange for that guaranteed character,
Right, right.
regardless of whoever you want. With Genshin, they've done it with saying that you're guaranteed because they only have one like main featured character per banner, so they've locked it at 180, which coming from other games, I think actually that's not too bad because it's not 300
Right, right.
in that sense.
Yeah.
But I think it's also a very broad. Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
no, no, no. I was gonna go there.
You,
So I didn't know that.
um,
Sorry, hello. Oh yeah.
yeah, I'm here.
I was
Yes.
just gonna say that I didn't know about the guarantee at 180 pools for Genshin.
Genshin?
Yeah, I didn't
Right.
know about the 180 pools guaranteed, but the thing is, like, there are a couple of games, that what they have is, a lot of modern gacha games have a pity system, and this is part of the topic that we wanted to go in depth on, which is
Mhm.
where they basically say, instead of like the one that I was talking about with Grand Order, like if you spend $3,000, you still can't get like the one you want, right? A lot of more
Right.
modern,
It's completely no pity at all. Yeah,
correct, like
merciless.
merciless. It's like finish him and his wallet. Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of more modern gacha games these days have what you call a pity system, either whether it's a hard pity or a soft pity system. Well, of course, when we're talking
Mhm.
about a soft pity, we're talking about a system where they at the back end gradually improve your rates, or like certain things to just generally help you out. It doesn't guarantee the character that you want, but just generally
Yeah.
helps you out. So Genshin sort of has a soft pity system,
Mhm.
in built into it, where basically if you I think some the number of YouTubers and even friends of mine, they were talking about it for a bit,
Mhm.
where basically they have a system where they do like, you start off at, is it 0.6% or is it 6% for a 5 star unit?
0.6 for winning 5 star for a
Right,
five
right.
star character is 0.6. Yeah.
Correct. And then what they do is that with every progressive pool that you do, the percentage goes up. Um,
Yes.
and then some guy in China did like, he used a supercomputer or something and like did like a billion emulations about it. And he realized that by the 70th pool, your there was a sudden spike in probability, and
Mhm.
then like on average the prediction at the time was like, by your 76th 75th 76th 78th pool, a lot of people will get a 5 star, and then suddenly it'll
Yep.
just drop the probability again. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that a bit before we get into some trouble with Genshin. um,
Yeah.
it's not a drop in probability, sorry, it's just that because most people, what happens is that once you get your 5 star, they reset this pattern. So it's
Yes.
not that your 80th pool has a lower probability. It's just that for most people, you would got your 5 star before that. So your 80th pool, right, the odds of you getting a 5 star is just lower, but you still be able to get it. And
Mhm.
it's a guaranteed 5 star by your 90th pool, right?
Yes, it's a guaranteed on your 90th pull.
Correct, correct. So that's pretty much it. So yeah, so that was like that's a soft pity. There's also a separate soft pity which I heard of, which is really really interesting. Which is, a friend of mine
Mhm.
told me, and I don't know, you can't quote me on this one, but I think it's really interesting if it's there, because at least from my own pools, this is true for my own
Mhm.
pools, is that every
Right.
20th pool, every 20 pools, there has to be one
Yeah.
character.
If you look at what you've put up on the screen, the fourth paragraph actually sort of describes that
Oh really?
because they always, yeah. So when you win a 4-star item in this event, which there's a 50% chance it'll be one of the featured characters, but the next one is guaranteed to be a featured character. So every 20 pulls, you
Right,
will get a
exactly.
character,
So
the
yeah, so
featured one. Yeah.
correct. So that's exactly it. So if you are pulling for Genshin, right, this system sort of sets it up in such a way, right, that you know what, even if you wouldn't get stuck with just weapons, you're definitely going to enjoy some characters at some point in the game.
Hmm.
And it's a pretty nice. Once again, to Genshin's credit, they did think about it a little bit more thoroughly, and it is a very very nice thing to have there.
It's
Yeah,
expensive, but I do feel that uh just before Genshin came out, everyone was being like, this is stupid expensive. It's 180 goals for a guaranteed 5. But compared as a gacha player and having compared across a huge number of games, I actually feel that Genshin's rates are acceptable. I'm not completely happy with them, but based on market forces, with like I mentioned, how poll prices are sort of at a standard rate,
right.
it's not too bad. But of course, unless you're going for a full concert 6 constellation Zhongli, then you're expecting that at the worst case you'll be spending close to $3,000.
Yeah, well, I mean, which is just, I mean, it's just insane. I've got a, but I also here's the funny thing, right? I think I don't think
Hmm.
we'll end up spending $3,000. The rate seems to be pretty decent. I've got a friend who, according to at least some estimates, and I'm not going to drop names here,
Right.
spent about 800 ringgit or so. She's got three Zhonglis. So basically, it's
Yeah.
Constellation 2, which is not too bad for like. I mean, look. To be fair, $800 is a lot of money, right? Let's be honest
Yes.
here. 800,
Yeah.
800 ringgit in any local currency is a lot of money.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's still not too bad. And and
Yeah.
and look, look, to anyone who has a problem with me saying just spend $800 on a digital game, what the f balls, man, right? Like this guy is not even going to be like anything solid, or like don't you have meals to pay for, or like or or or, or like debts to loans to repay or some shit. Like, you are
Right.
absolutely right. Like we are not
Hmm.
talking about, if you have larger and prior obligations, please please, for the love of God, do not spend $800 on a gacha game. You know, like you,
Right.
yeah. But so I expect anyone who's listening here on this one to be at least to have some like maturity when it comes to approaching these kind of things. Please do not come to a Twitch stream, right, and go like, oh no, like tell your parents like, oh, well, I heard from this Twitch stream that it's normal for people to spend $800 on a game, like every month or every other week or so. And it's like, and then the parents come like knocking over and like, hey, what the hell are you teaching my kids? It's like, no, this is not where you should be like learning how to value your money. This is not the place. All right.
Yes, only if you have some additional disposable savings, not disposable income, but disposable savings that
Yeah, man.
you sort of want to reward yourself and enjoy a game because mobile games, unlike from my perspective, mobile games, unlike console games or PC games, is something that you constantly play on the go. So in terms of entertainment value, it's you get more mileage out of it,
Right, right,
although the
exactly.
cost is feels relatively higher, right?
Right. Um, I mean, at least for me, the way I see it is, and
Mhm.
this is at least my view of how gacha games are like.
Mhm.
So this quick history lesson for a lot of people out there. Like if you're not familiar with gaming culture as a whole, right? A long long time ago, uh, 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 when sort of long term games, that means it's not a single purchase game, were out, what people used to do was that you have to buy a subscription, and this
Mhm.
subscription paid for servers and the meals of its workers to basically maintain and continue making content for the games that you like.
Mm.
Yeah, so somebody has to get paid, somebody has to eat after all, right? So what happens is that, and then somewhere along the line, some guy went, huh, do you think if we gave players the option to pay, that they might sometimes pay us more and then
You
other
mean
players
the
would
option to pay as a microtransaction, right?
exactly, and then when
Yeah.
and then every other player can click free, and then like maybe we'll still survive. That question came up, and then we have this whole new massive world of microtransactions. So yeah, like right now, we were sort of like went very very much more further ahead of all this process, and like how I've often described gacha games to a lot of people who discuss gacha games with me is that gacha games are basically the crowdfunding version of mobile gaming. Basically, what you do is sorry, of gaming in general. So basically, those who can afford will pay more. Those who can't afford will pay less, and then you always have freeloaders on the side who's just going to go like, yeah, sure, whatever, man.
I
You know?
mean, it's true. I from my perspective, I think before we go further and coming down into sort of like, wow, we kind of dissect the whole mobile gaming industry because it it has always felt that, yeah, I mean, if you're doing like minor purchases, like through microtransactions in order to keep your game alive,
Mm.
sort of like, people, but I think there's a lot of bloat. We're coming from segueing again with Epic Store versus Apple in that sense of that, they've said one of the reasons why a lot of things cost so much is because there's a 30% charge by Apple and Google on developers.
Yeah.
So you've got that 30%. And then the fact that is there are now thousands and thousands of mobile gacha games out there that in order for them to cut through that noise, there's a lot more marketing involved and polish and everything and animations and everything, which yes, I do admit that there's a certain cost to it that they need to make back. But then at the same time, you read articles that come back saying that Genshin Impact made 400 million in its first week, and then you're like, I would assume that 400 million covered basically all their development costs at one go, and they have actually enough in their pockets to go on for the next 2 years. But this is only the first week. So then, yes, I understand that they want to have microtransactions so that people are more willing to spend. But at the same time, the people who are willing to spend have literally padded their pockets.
Was
like,
it
in a massive way?
was that the first week? I thought it was the first month.
No, it was the first week. The first week they hit at least 100 million minimum.
No, yeah. First week 100 million. Yes, I think that was true. But 400 million, I don't think it was within the first week.
60 million, US 60 million.
In the first week, was it?
First week.
Okay.
245 million in the first month.
Yes, that sounds about right. That sounds much better.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I overly inflated, but that's still from a normal salary man. That's a lot of money.
Well, okay. So for context, right? Like for anyone who's not familiar with the news and on this matter, so the fact is, there was an article that was out, at least being declared. MiHoYo spent about $100 million in development for Genshin, and when they said like, oh yeah, we like I think first 2 weeks I think they were hitting 100 million. That was at least what I understand of the news at the time. And then they were like, oh yeah, we recouped, like everyone was like, oh, they recouped their costs in the first 2 weeks.
Everything.
Right. So, but the question here, of course, at the back of my head, being a person who's been in the industry a little bit longer, my big question in my head was like, does that 100 million include marketing? Because like if you're familiar, right, like I don't know, Aaron, whether you've been around these days because of COVID and everything else, but there was at least 2 stations, MRT stations here in Singapore, that they just completely like just covered with Genshin ads, right?
Yeah, they did it for 5 countries if I remember correctly, and for Singapore they did it at Serangoon MRT station. That's the one I know of, with an AR kind of thing. Yeah.
Correct. So they did one in Serangoon, then they did one more in I think what was it? Farrer Park. They did one in Farrer Park. That was the one.
Farrer Park's a weird place though. But
I
they also had they also had their MRT ads all over. Like I take the MRT for work and stuff. So at Jurong East, like every door had Genshin
Right, exactly. That's pretty
images
much
and everything.
correct. That is the same one. So the crazy thing. Oh, by the way, and just want to give context for anyone who did not know this one. The one in Serangoon, right, was this massive walkway that connected two lines. And what they did was that they in this walkway, right, which was about I would say about 100 meters in length. Um, what happened was that they actually had the music for Genshin piping into that space. Do you notice that?
Mm. I didn't go past, but
Ah,
I've heard about it and I know
right,
about it because I was actually keeping track in terms of what Genshin was doing in terms of marketing and being
right,
like I guess they needed to do that for some reason.
right.
So which I mean I guess it's something where from a layman point of view it's like did they really need to do it because it doesn't touch on that many people, but at the same time we are gamers, right? We always are in the news. So hearing about Genshin is sort of like, your day in, day out kind of thing,
Correct,
whereas there's still about 90% of the population who have never heard of mobile games
correct.
or looked into it. Yeah.
Right, and to be fair, like look at it this way. Over in Japan, um, advertising for mobile games is really commonplace. It's all over the place, and
It is.
yeah, and they have one of the highest saturation for mobile gamers in like their mobile games market is one of the highest has one of the highest saturations like in the world, and I think
The mobile game spending for Japan literally is the main, from what I know, it's basically more than the entire world combined.
uh, that's a statistic I wouldn't be able to confirm offhand, but
Mhm.
the point is that the point I'm trying to get here is that you'd assume that there will be some correlation between the two, like mass
Mhm.
advertising and the saturation of the market. So
As in, if it worked there, it should work somewhere else,
correct,
right?
right? So yeah,
Mhm.
I wouldn't blame you for trying, the kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so but yeah, I guess where was I going with this?
We were talking about the fact that we tend to feel that making a profit is understandable, but
Oh,
the amount of profit that a lot of games are making seems to be over and
right,
beyond, which then
correct,
as an individual you feel like that I
correct,
am
correct.
paying way too much
Correct.
kind of
But
thing. Yeah.
right, which is exactly the other thing that I wanted to talk. You went on about how platforms will take a huge cut, which is 30% cut
Yeah.
from every transaction being made, and then there's also this massive. And then there's this massive marketing budget that Yoyo made to get the number of players to get that kind of money.
Yeah.
You can if you think about it, right, like so I was using the strangling thing as an example, and my girlfriend who worked in advertising for a long time, she was like
Mm-hmm.
saying that that's easily $1 million, like Sing dollars right there. That's easily $1 million in Sing dollars right there, like
They
just to
kept it
do.
up for almost a month, I think.
Correct.
So yeah,
Usually these kind
it
of things
could
is about a month.
be around there.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's $1 million right there. Like music, everything else, that's just $1 million right there. So that, and then you said 5 countries, right? And then it's not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
one point, right? It's just not just one place. So it's multiple
Mm-hmm.
places and like multiple millions of dollars spent just like that. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like they said that it's 100 million in development, but we don't know the marketing budget, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, they have a declared team of about 300 people. Or three is it 300 or 500 people? I can't remember off the top of my head. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and those people need to obviously eat and like maintain the game, and they need to continue churning out the content for the rest of the game and everything else, right?
Right.
So that's salaries that need to be paid even after that 100 million. That 100 million was like that 3 years that they were doing development all the way until this point. And as right now the project is live, that means the server guys need to be there, the game support guys need to be there. There's more people for them to like pay for it and everything else now. Yeah.
I'm just being ironic by saying that each temple you do probably pays the hourly wages for about three people over at MiHoYo though.
Yeah, that's being very generous about it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's being very generous about it. But yeah, but
I
anyway,
mean, it's just that like we come back to that whole how gacha itself started. I think my first experience with gacha was not with mobile games, but with do you remember like those books, sticker books with
oh yeah,
FIFA and everything, where you basically have to buy the packs. Because I
Yeah.
believe that you also wanted to talk about how card games have moved also onto the digital space. So that's also a
Right.
digital
Right.
gacha, right?
Yeah.
So it's that kind of thing where, I mean, those were like, I think back then for me, it was like, and this was in the 80s. Yes, I'm quite old. I think they were like 150 a pack. So each sticker was like 15 cents. And 15 Singapore cents back then was like, you could get a meal in your school canteen with 15 cents.
Okay, I
But you
have.
actually, yeah,
Yeah, I just want to ask, like, at 50 cents in Singapore back in those days, right?
15 actually,
Oh,
not
1
50.
5. Okay,
Right.
so 15
Yeah,
cents.
1.5. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
15 cents in Singapore back in those days, right? I have to ask that.
hmm
Like, if you will go to a hawker center, what can you get? Can you get anything?
No, but because chicken rice would be about $1.50. So
Okay,
you
so
are actually buying one pack for exchanging one plate of chicken rice for one pack of cards. Yeah.
yeah, that would be a very very nice measure of
Correlation,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it would be a nice unit of measurement is where I'm getting at this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
because just a fun fact, I have a friend in a friend in Malaysia. He's a fantastic guy, and one point of reference he used to joke about is, do you know how many bowls of laksa I can buy with that money? And
Yeah, true.
yeah, and the average price of a good bowl of laksa nowadays, unfortunately, in Malaysia, is about 8 ringgit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man has the
Which
price
is still
inflated.
cheap compared from Singapore
I know,
standards. So
but man has the
yeah.
price inflated. That used to be 4 ringgit when I was younger, but let's not go there.
Right.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, please do
So the
continue your
thing
point.
is, when you look at the concept of that whole inflation with gacha games and everything, it's like every time I do a tempo, this is literally a $30 meal that I'm giving up on. So the randomization is like, having only a 1% or 0.6, or even I think FGO goes down to like 0.3% chance of getting a character. It feels predatory. I think a lot of people have that kind of thing. Although we sort of like, we say hours at a day kind of thing. So my total entertainment value from this is maybe, a $30 because I played it for 30 days. That's about $1 a day. These are all the things that I think a lot of players tend to tell themselves to make themselves feel better. I mean, I do it myself, and sometimes as much as I hate it, but at the same time you also get good times, right? Where you get a surprise pull. And you
Correct.
get a character that you weren't expecting, and then you'll be like, hey, this offsets the other 90 pulls I had to do for another character, kind of thing, right?
I mean, like, I think look, we are going to be fair, we are fans of the genre. I mean, and full disclosure, I am working within the genre itself. So our points of views can be very cheery and positive about it, because part of it is that we are normalized to gacha games. But at the same time, I think how a lot of people who are not familiar with gacha games have sort of like went sort of approached it in this really weird and okay, sorry, weird is the wrong choice of words. I do
Mhm.
apologize for that, but sort of this they sort of approached it in a way that's only pure negative. Like, it's just as a point of reference, right? Like, can you imagine if you were to approach the topic of driving, and the only thing you talk about, right, is the possibility of killing people by running them over? That's just weird, right? Right?
Okay, using your analogy of sort of driving,
Right.
I don't drive, and one of the reasons why I don't drive is not because like you sort of brought up that thing, but it's actually a monetary reason, because
Right.
owning a car, especially in Singapore,
Right.
feels extremely costly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the
Correct.
same time, when I think about it, if I stopped playing gacha games, I could probably afford a car.
So priorities is what we're getting at here.
Yes, yes, it's that kind of thing. That what is more important to me, or what do I enjoy more? Because there have been gacha games that I've picked up, and I've completely felt that even though I do enjoy it, um, the cost and the way the gacha, even though yes, if you normalize it and saying that across all the games, it is actually still $30 for every 10 pulls you do, right? Because truthfully, it has felt like it's been normalized. There are just certain games that just don't have that attraction, regardless of whether they give you a soft pity, a hard pity, or anything. Because the randomization is there, but most players don't care. I mean, they care, but once they really want something, reason goes out the window about, oh, it's only a 0.6%. I'm just gonna, put in as much money as I need to get this one character that I want. The having a hard pity is just good because, but at the same time, I think it's because of legal reasons that a lot of games are sort of implementing this hard pity.
I don't know. I don't think it's a legal reason, but I do think it's a fear of legal reasons and bad PR.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing though. In that regard, I do agree that it's sort of a good thing because, so like I've had this talk with a number of people before. I think gacha has a lot of the trappings of gambling, which once again I'm not going to debate you over because that is absolutely correct. It has a lot of the trappings of gambling. But the key thing here is that it is not technically gambling. And I know to a lot of people who might be listening and who might be watching this, and a lot of people might argue and say that you're splitting hairs. It is you're spending money, you don't know what you're gonna get, and therefore by that definition, it should be gambling. You don't know your end results. You're spending money, you don't know your end results. By right, if it's a transaction, you should spend and you should get exactly what you want. That is a difference here. And you are not wrong by looking at it that way. I'm not saying that you're wrong. Okay, that is a perfectly reasonable and respectable perspective.
Logical. It's definitely logical.
Correct. But here's the thing. For me, and the keyword here is for me. Gambling is when you go in with let's say for example a base state, and what happens is, right, your base state, right, goes from 0 to a negative state. That means you spent money and you went down in value, right, in state, right. That's for me is gambling. What happens is that for me gacha games are, it's more like you spend money, you are 100% without question getting units. For example, we're talking about Genshin here, using Genshin here as an example. You're going to be getting weapons and units without question.
Right.
This is confirmed.
Right. Yeah.
Then what happens is that the game then goes, if your luck is good, I will turn some of these units and weapons into better units and weapons.
Right.
Yeah. So that to me is what a gacha game is. It's not that you're spending money and then and getting bad things. You're getting stuff that goes up in value. Once again, as I no, but yeah, and to be fair, and to everyone who's going to go like, oh no, this is bullshit. This is lobbying bullshit. You are right to some degree. I mean, it does sound like lobbying bullshit, and it really does depend on how you look at what a gacha game is.
The honesty when we come into this is, for me, I see it as it is a temporary. That's why also on the other side, like, one thing is they say that gachas are akin to gambling. The other side, they also say that gachas are akin to drugs, which is true because it is a short-time high. Right. And the fact that when you just now, one of the first things you mentioned was it's gambling, it means it's a 0 to a negative. In terms of gacha, your negative doesn't come until potentially 5-6 years later when the server shut down and everything is gone. Even in the game's terms of agreements, it already says you do not own anything that you have paid for in this game.
Right. That's a very funny statement, but you're not entirely wrong.
Yeah. I mean, it's coming from a different perspective to look at it and saying that I know that this is whatever I'm putting my money in, I'm never going to get anything of true value back at the end, because it's not an investment. Even though we say like, I'm investing in the game to get characters to improve, because at the same time, at the end of the day, however money I come back, I'm not going to get a single cent back, and it's a net loss eventually.
Right.
But that's like, eons down the road, which most people don't care about. I think it's mentioned in the chat, right? How do we rationalize this base transactional value? I don't think Yeah.
Correct. So you're it's absolutely correct in a sense. Like there's 2 points here to be made. One of them is regarding to the point that you were making about the terms and conditions of all these kind of things, right? Is
Hmm.
first and foremost, how many of us do actually read the terms and conditions of shit? Like really now?
Yeah. That's
let's
true. It's like
let's
just
be
click
honest.
agree and move on,
Let's
right?
just
Yeah.
move on,
That's
right? Let's be
yeah.
honest here for like 2 seconds, yeah. So that's one obvious thing. Exactly. What is terms and conditions? It's like we're for that record, we're all going to hell for that reason. Like I'm quite sure that hell because lying is a sin. If you're a religious person, lying is a sin. We're all just going to go to hell because of like have you read these terms and conditions? Have you read and agreed to these terms? Click yes. Let's move on. Like nobody has ever read the terms and conditions
I
completely.
do from time to time when I'm
Yeah, but
quite
not
worried about
everyone.
stuff.
Not
But
but not
yeah,
everyone. Not everyone. You definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely not the case. But anyway,
Right.
but yes, the other one which was regarding Equis's question about how often a general gacha player is able to rationalize the base transactional value of gacha. That is absolutely correct. The answer is that the 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 the, the chances, or rather um the frequency of that is, to be fair, quite low.
Mm.
Especially if you are not a native gacha player. People who play gacha for a lot more longer, right? Eventually, one of two things is going to happen. And this is, I'm not going to say that these are best practices. Yeah, these are just things that I think players just tend to do over time. So one of them is that they will start if they know they have a limited budget. Oh, sorry, that went wrong. First one is that what they'll do is that players who played gacha games for a while, right? What they'll do is they'll set a budget aside and say, this is how much I'm going to spend every month or every X period of time on gacha games or whatever else there is. They set a hard limit for themselves and be really disciplined about it, or and maybe break it occasionally for like stupid reasons and things like that.
That's true. Either that or just curse themselves silently for the next 2 to 3 weeks
Right.
while they're being like, if only I had put in another $30, maybe I could have got that character. Especially
Exactly.
for games that don't have the hard PD that we were talking about
Correct.
in
Right.
that sense.
Correct, and
Yeah.
all these kind of things. Actually, we didn't really quite get into the hard PT. We'll get into that afterwards because we were talking about soft PTs
Yeah.
and we like completely went off tangents a bit.
Yeah, no worries. I think that's the point of our conversation is
It's
that
true.
we segue, but these are all relevant to
Yeah,
the
correct, right?
whole system that we're talking about,
Correct.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Calling it off tangents is quite right. But anyway, semantics. So there's one aspect of it. There's one what some people do. Then the other side is that those with a really limited budget or a lot of players who are free to play players, what they'll do is they'll save resources, and what they'll do is they'll wait for reviews of characters and banners to come out and go, okay, yeah, this looks like something I want to roll, or this is something that looks like something I want, that kind of thing. And that's how they sort of discipline themselves in doing it. But the fact of the matter is that, and this is once again to be fair to the genre and to be fair to everyone involved, the fact of the matter is that gacha does use a lot of trappings of gambling. It does a lot of emotional. It invokes a lot of emotional responses in the process and everything else. It does try to
That's so true.
yeah, and it does give you a really, like all good gacha games have a very good developed system of giving you that good high of like, oh yes, I've got the character I want. Oh god, this feels so good. Blah blah blah. All this kind of thing, right?
It goes I from a mildly psychological point of view,
Right.
it goes back to that fight where you get your favorite toy from the toy shop kind of thing. Like you
Exactly.
see it at the store and then you're saving up your money for it. And then when you get it in your hands, it just feels good at
Right.
that point in time, and you can play with it, the
Correct.
new shiny toy, until the next month when they release the next new shiny toy, and you're like, I
Correct.
want
Correct.
that one too.
So
Yeah.
so and it has, and once again, it has everything to do with that emotional trappings of gambling and all that kind of things, which is, as I
Mhm.
said, which is why that's something that I can never deny. And that's absolutely true to the genre, which is why exactly, right? Like why I also agree, right, that like more and more modern games, and this is a perfect segue to the hard gacha hard PT thing, where more and more modern gacha games right now have a hard PT system, which say
Mhm.
if you spend a X amount of money on it, you're guaranteed one copy of the character that we are, like this specific character.
It's
You
a
know, and
stopgap measure. Yeah,
correct,
it's a
correct.
plug to be like, we may become an issue. Let's try to
Well,
mitigate it at the
look,
at the
look,
start, right? Yeah.
look. When somebody spends $3,000 and still not get what they want, it's definitely an issue. I definitely will agree with this. Like I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes, if you have shit luck and you're not able to control yourself, probably something should be done. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sad truth is that, I mean, let's be honest. Like even sugar has its own regulations, right?
Mhm.
Like the government does things to sort of encourage people not to consume as much sugar, encourage companies not to put out as much sugar and all that kind of things, because at some point your body's going to hit a threshold that it's going to lose a limb, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm sorry, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out there. If anyone's offended by a diabetes reference, um, uh, I am being very, very respectful about the matter, because the fact of the matter is that diabetes is not a joking matter, okay? And all the efforts put into place, right, to try and avoid people from getting diabetes is something that is commendable. And in this very same fashion, right, um, steps that are put into place, right, to prevent people from overspending money that they don't have or they cannot afford is definitely something commendable in that same fashion. But
Mhm.
but having said all that, in that very same parallel, right? No one stops you from eating as much sugar as you want. If you want to go into like supermarket and buy 6 bags of sugar and just down it on your own, right? No one's stopping you. It's not against the law. It's not criminal, right?
I mean, it's the same thing when we come back to gacha. The EU has like a number of countries have effectively sort of put in laws to ban gacha games, and so a lot of games actually don't distribute to the EU, but people still have different ways of accessing the downloads and
Yeah,
just paying using a credit card
right.
through the US through a US account or through an Asian account. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a largely, I personally think like the EU move is mostly largely symbolic rather than
Hmm.
meant to really stop anybody. It's like, hey, look, people are complaining, we better do something about it. They're not really going to do anything about it. It's just a thing that, like, yeah, I mean,
It's a watch yourself kind of thing. Like,
yeah,
it's
that
like
let's
this is
let's
here.
correct.
Yeah.
Let's just make it a little bit harder, and then so that like people who are a little bit more impulsive have a little bit more trouble to do it. And once again, I don't completely disagree with that move,
Hmm.
So yeah, so I mean, we're talking about hard limits, sorry, hard pity systems. I think I since we were mentioning about hard pity systems, I do want to bring up a very interesting uh, reference,
Hmm.
and I just want to bring this up real quick. This is the game I wanted to bring up is Epic 7, which is actually a Korean game, and it's the first game I played that has a strict hard pity system.
Okay.
Yeah, which is very interesting because they had this. I wasn't familiar with this term until like a bunch of my friends were telling me about it, which is they call it the I think they were referring at the time as the 120 gang. So the way it works is that every time they have a rate up, right? We saw with you see in the image there on the screen, it's based on the screenshot that we have, is like Cecilia there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, correct. Um, sorry. There's this, you can't see it on the visual, but what happened was that they actually have a hard pity where if you roll 120 times, you are guaranteed one copy of Cecilia. I can't remember whether this is additive. That means basically on your 120th roll, once you hit the 120th roll, he'll just give you extra Cecilia no matter what. But basically, the system does say like, hey, you spent 120 rolls on this game. Here's probably what you're rolling for, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which is pretty which is a good way to sort of like save people from overspending in that way. Like, at some point you should be stopping. And even if you repeat the hard cap over and over again, right? And yes, you can repeat it. It at least protects players, right, from like overspending indefinitely, right, without getting what they want.
Yes.
Yeah. So I definitely agree though that this is like, hey, you're spending a lot more than if you just straight out buy the thing.
Hmm.
Very, very different conversation. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
I think.
Yeah. Go on, go on.
Oh, sorry. I think it's something that newer games have intrinsically just put into their games now to have this kind of thing. But there have been a few games that when they started, they didn't have this kind of hard pity uh, kind of situation. But now they've decided that, yeah, for on the safe side or to make the gacha itself more appealing. I think earlier Hikari actually said in the chat is that it makes you spend more because you're guaranteed that as long as I can hit that number, I will get who I want in
Right.
that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it seems this habit of doing hard limits is it's seemingly quite common in a lot of Korean games at
It's
least.
growing.
Yeah, and I think a lot more games have
Mm-hmm.
more growing more and more similar styles. A quick mention on this one is like another one which is Exos Heroes, which is also another Korean game.
Yeah.
Fantastic looking graphics, but apparently very questionable business practices.
And
Uh,
definitely.
yeah, and yeah, they have a very obvious and hard limit on that as well, like hard PT on that system as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
But I think the interesting thing about Exos Heroes was we had a conversation was also is that
yeah,
uh there was a Facebook post, like I said, it's not, I cannot say that it is, but I
mm,
couldn't find it before this podcast, but it was that someone they made a mistake and they actually gave out more of the paid currency than was expected. And what they did was they issued an order to they sent an email to the to the account to the user and said that, please pay us back for the additional currency that was accidentally given to you, or we will shut down your account. So I think uh, that is definitely another questionable kind of thing, because
yeah,
it's not a constant practice to actually be threatening your
yeah.
users
But
in terms of that.
yeah, but I'm surprised though. Like, is there any real like news articles on that? Because I really did not hear anything about it, and I have some friends who were playing on, who were playing Exos Heroes, but I didn't hear any of them actually complain about it. And some of them are still playing the game, so I'm just curious to know whether like was there any article or coverage over that matter?
Yeah, I still need to search for that, but it was really something that appeared in through my Facebook feed, and then it went away. But they had screenshots and stuff like that. But of course, once again, was slightly detracting away from
Well, I mean,
our
yeah,
point of conversation at this
right,
point
right,
in time. Yeah,
yeah, but
I'll look for it, and maybe I'll share it with people when we see it.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
that's right. I mean, I look, to be fair, it is sort of um um to some degree, all gacha games. I mean, actually, what am I saying to some degree? This is literally the case. All gacha games are live ops games. Like basically, they're games that are meant to be service-based games. They're going to be there for a while, at least a couple of years, and they're just going to like be there. Like as you play, you pay whatever you can afford to try and support the game and stuff like that. That's generally the
We do
idea.
hope that they last for longer than we hope, but I
Correct.
think the standard tends to be about 5 to 6 years before
Yeah.
there's a bit of a downturn.
Yeah.
The
Correct.
longest, some games last maybe 8 or 9, but
Right.
then you get the issue with even you were mentioning earlier, character bloat, where it just
Correct.
gets so bloated. There are so many characters that your odds of getting something, or whether even if you got it, whether it stays relevant every time the game updates
Right.
is a massive question, right?
Right. Well, okay. So yeah. I we've got sort of we've been at this topic for about like an hour plus at this point, and
Yeah.
I think we've just very almost very surface touched a lot of the topics because honestly there was a lot of stuff I really did want to touch about card games on this topic when we were planning out this topic because the fact is in many ways
Hmm.
card games, the randomization of card games, like cards in a booster pack and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Have a very similar property uh, with that of gacha games in general. Like you do a 10 roll, it's very similar to you just doing a booster pack roll of 10 cards. You know,
Hmm.
it's almost the same. The only difference is that most trading card games have a guaranteed rare. So you're like no matter every time you do a 10 roll, you're guaranteed certain things. Um, but
Hmm.
uh, which not all gacha games can say that, but um, but uh, uh, a lot of people don't see this parallel. A lot of people don't see this parallel, and I really wanted to make a point of it. But it is this session is running a bit long. And I do want to. We have a small, tiny amount of people watching, which I'm very, very thankful for hanging around with us. Thank you very much for joining us this whole time. And I do want to open up to some questions. If anybody has any questions on this one, just a
Or
little
points to raise, right?
yeah, correct. Points to raise, or you want to bring up and you want to just make a point, because we've been at this for about an hour and 15 minutes right now, and I don't want to end this without having a chance to engage with everybody who's here with us to support us. So yes, do type in your questions, and and if you have any thoughts on the matter, that just share with us. Um, just as a point, I know we don't usually do this, as in like this probably should have been in the start of this session, but Aron here, he's a dear friend of mine. He's not actually like actively working directly in the games industry, but he does do reporting over the games industry and animation and comics and games industry as a whole. And I myself work within the mobile games industry, and as I mentioned earlier, very specifically for gacha games. So I, in case it's not obvious, and we're both fans of the genre. So as we mentioned a number of times, so in case it's not obvious, we do have a pretty rosy and positive view of gacha games. We are trying our best to try and present it in the most balanced way possible, but do take whatever we say with a huge grain of salt, because we are fans of the genre, So, all fairness.
I mean, sometimes we personally take it with a huge bowl of salt for the fact that we play the games as normal players and we don't get what we want. So
Yeah,
we
right.
do have that in kinds of frustrations that most papers have. And
Yeah.
although in this conversation we're trying to rationalize it a bit more, but at the same time we do understand that, if I go 100 posts and I don't get what I want, I am just as angry as the next guy who
Yeah.
spent for 50 posts because that was what he had and he didn't get it either.
Right.
And we are all jealous and angry with the person who got it in one poll as much as the guy who spent $2,000 to get the same character.
Right.
It's a broad spectrum, and I think we're all in this. And right now, it's just a conversation to sort of go through what are all these aspects that are making this cost high, or maybe the randomization being like, is it really such a impactful thing that affects people who really want to get a character or want to play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, a large part of what I'm also trying to do here is to add a little bit more context into what gacha games are like. As I said at the beginning of this section, a lot of people, I feel that a lot of people might have approached gacha games wrongly, and there's a lot of history and context to be understood of why we are here where we are, and how we got here, that kind of thing. So it's not and it's not to say and once again, it's not wrong for people to look at the state we're in and go, hey, this doesn't look quite right, that's fine, you're not wrong. Because everyone's a common term that I often use is that everyone's opinion is valid. The question is whether it is whether it's relevant and whether it is practical. These are the only two. There's a difference between the three of them. So it's relevant. If you have an opinion, you have a perspective towards certain things, you are definitely right from where you stand. There might be some gaps in your factual information and stuff like that, and that might be revised and changed as more information goes along. But your opinion at that time, based on your available information, is correct to you. Yeah. Then the question is, as a person who is receiving your opinion and all that kind of stuff, then the impetus and the own, at least for me, is to see whether it's applicable and whether it is practical. Because you don't always have the context, or you don't always have you're not always the person executing that kind of stuff, right? So it's a very different thing. But yeah, so
It's always that it's always that idea of when you're standing at the counter, or if
right,
you're the person behind the counter,
right, right,
it's completely different.
correct,
What you see may be only one aspect, but what the person behind the counter sees may be 100 of different other people with different requirements and different aspects that they see.
right,
So we're just trying to, I think the conversation helps to sort of like, let's look at it from different perspectives and
right.
try to just, get people to understand it a bit more without
Yeah,
thinking about it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. Uh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, Equis was saying that yeah, as because just so you know, Equis uh, is the person who started this with me actually very much. Like
Right.
my first two three
Okay.
sessions were with Equis. He's a very very well established games designer currently in the UK. So yeah, he's typing up the chat right now saying, as I spoke to BMG, I'm not a gacha player, just someone with a academic curiosity about it. Even as I admit to coming from a more cynical POV of it, it doesn't seem to work on me, and that's fine. And I completely agree. It's not for everyone. Not all games are out for everyone. You know, we have to.
I have to be honest.
Yeah,
On my side, I approach everyone with every game that I start playing with a very cynical point of view, being like, I'm not gonna put in money until it's good, but at the same time, because being a very visual person and being,
right,
into anime and gaming and everything, it just looks so pretty, and
right,
it's just a little, you come up with all the self
right,
rationalization on that, just a little bit would
right,
hurt, and then you're $200 in, and you're
right.
like, if I've already spent $200 in my first month,
Yeah.
spending $30 this month is going to be fine, right? And then it's like, it's just one character. If I get this one character, I think I'm set for the rest of the game. That's always the rationalization that I feel a lot of players come in, and
Man,
that's how we deal with the randomness, the
man,
monetization, and
that
we just say that,
yeah,
just
yeah.
this once.
that that rabbit hole of yours is like, yes, everyone falls down that rabbit hole, and that rabbit hole is just dangerous if you don't know, if you don't have any proper sense of self-control.
Yeah, but at the same time, with the games, it does have to have that kind of appeal, because there have been a number of games that I've started playing. I've spent like 2-3 months of it in the game. I've spent maybe like $60-$100 at most, but then I lose it. I don't feel that, it's like my initial investment brought me to somewhere, because sometimes, like we mentioned it, um, they keep coming up with new characters. They keep constantly throwing new stuff, because there are various spectrums of people, players, right?
Yeah,
You've got that one player who has everything, so he keeps demanding more, because it's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm bored with my toys. Whereas you have the other spectrum who they don't even have a single 5 star, and they're
yeah,
still enjoying the game.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
you're absolutely right. So it really depends on you as a player, and I mean you as a person sort of have to recognize when you're going into gacha games. We actually, in fact, you're going into anything for that matter. You need to sort of assess whether it's something that you can really afford, or you really should be getting yourself into, which is a bit crazy, I admit, because
I'm sure some
like
gaming companies actually have like a psychological advisor
yeah, yeah,
to to
definitely
to
does.
kind of give this kind of like,
Yeah,
opinion of like, what's the next way, what's the next model we can
right.
include in our game to sort of just make it that much more appealing.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, to some degree, to some degree. So yeah, Out of Hikari mentions has a comment, and I want to read it out because it is something that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to just mention casually, about at least my personal perspective towards spending money on Genshin. So he says,
Mhm.
Out of Hikari says, I treat Genshin as a normal RPG with the gacha system as a plus. So I'm able to enjoy the game a lot through exploring, experiencing the story, and being in awe with the graphics. So yeah, Genshin Impact is a very very beautifully designed game. Um, uh, and sorry, when I say design, I mean like visually designed game, because I literally did a 2 hour plus session ranting about its UX. Um, but that's exactly it. Genshin did a lot of really good work as a game, as a company to make the game, right? You did a really good
Mhm.
job at trying to make the game. Um, I personally um, I personally did take a little offense to how um, the kind of shortcuts they took when it came to actually developing the game. Things like, for example,
Mm-hmm.
like the stereoscoping of characters from near. Do you know about that?
Not
Okay, so
not
basically,
really. Yeah.
when you do animation, there's a style of animation called
Mm-hmm.
sorry, not stereoscoping, it's rotoscoping. Sorry, my mistake.
Right.
Sorry, rotoscoping. So basically, what you do is that you take a a video reference,
Mm-hmm.
and then you animate and frame your character, right, frame by frame to that visual reference.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So usually when we do rotoscoping, we are taking a video of a live candidate, of a live person, and and then uh, and then we will just animate based on that. If you must, it is basically a poor man's mocap lah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens, however, is that uh, sorry. Yeah. So what happened was that a friend of mine did this thing where she took a video of, or I don't know whether she did it herself, right, or whether she just found it online. But basically, she found a video some animations in Nier Automata, the
Yeah.
the Yoko Taro game.
The video where they were showing that Noel's animations were
Correct.
exactly the same as
Correct. Exactly.
2B in Nier. Yes, I've seen
Correct.
the videos
And
about
it was
that. Yeah.
and it was a frame by frame. It was a frame by frame comparison.
Right. Yeah.
Even the timing of the dissipation of the weapons, and like the swing of the weapons, and everything was just down to the frame. Now to be
Yeah.
fair, I did not examine the videos myself too closely. I did not see whether the videos themselves were edited for timing. So to be fair,
Mm-hmm.
I did not do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it looked close enough that it was really, really, really uncomfortably suspicious. You know what I'm getting at? So, as sort of a personal um, uh, uh, protest against this kind of this shortcut
Mhm.
development, right? I told
Yeah.
myself that I'm not going to spend money on Genshin for a very, very long time. I'm going to go in,
Right.
I'm going to suck out their resources. Like, I'm just going to be that freeloader, intentionally being a freeloader for a while.
Right.
Partially, just to see the game and how it goes, but largely also as just out of protest, um, for these kind of really weird and not fantastic practices.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for anyone who's watching, or me watch, or maybe listening to this, small tip of advice. If you're going to complain about a game and you want to actively punish a developer, a live service developer, um, for really bad practices, don't quit the game. Don't tell people to not play the game. Don't boycott the game, especially, because that doesn't. You don't have enough clout to stop the millions of players who would have otherwise played the game. And one person is not going to do anything. You're not going. You not playing is literally only going to reduce the burden on their servers. That's all you're doing, which is literally a great thing. All right. I'm sorry to tell you this. This is horrible, but this is a fact. So if you really want to punish developers for really skivvy practices, you know what you should do? Be a free player, get all your friends to be free players, and the lot of you keep jumping on their servers and loading the crap out of it. Make the developers spend money on you. You know?
When you're saying this, it actually gives me a very concept that I think also Hikari mentioned, that
Yeah.
spending the 30-day pass as a kind of support. Just a bit of background is I used to work for a casino
Right.
for a very short period of time. So when we came back to that analogy about gachas and gambling,
Right.
it's that kind of thing where for casinos and stuff, they're only concerned about potentially the top 1 to 5% of players,
Right.
because those really spend money in like the millions when they're gambling and everything. But they will still maintain, the general population with
Right.
the membership cards, where if you come and you eat or you spend money at the casino, not
Right.
the casino itself, but let's say for example, in Singapore, the Marina Bay Sands, right? If you spend money there with your membership card, or you spend like, $20, $50, then you can redeem a free night stay and everything. The only reason that you are there is to pad the numbers, to make it look like it's a busy occupied. It's the same thing for gacha games. They are only honestly, they're only concerned about how I feel is they're concerned about that cute that the big players, right? The people who like, every month they're literally, okay, I'm going to buy out all your premium packs every
Right.
single month, every single week. When a new character comes out, I'm just gonna I don't even want to buy your promotional packs.
Right.
These guys literally just buy the most non-cost effective
Right.
pack and dump in the money until they get the character they want.
Right.
These are the people that honestly I feel that the gacha games are more concerned about.
Well,
Everyone else is just padding so that co-op feels like there's people. The world feels occupied. The
I will.
forums have people constantly talking about it.
Yeah.
There are YouTubers doing videos
Right.
about it, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I I do want to say, and this is not out of fear or any form of retribution. Okay, just sort of full disclosure of this matter is that
Yeah.
I can honestly say at least on the project that I'm working on,
Yeah.
it's not that we genuinely do care about the players. We genuinely do care about the welfare of our players and their play experience and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
I'm
I
at
mean,
least thankful about that.
yeah, coming from an external point of view, I feel that it is true. There are studios and stuff that do care, but at the same time, you have a bottom line that you need to deal with.
Correct,
And at the
obviously.
same time, the general population who are playing casually and stuff like that, let's say, coming back to what Hikari says, right? Playing it because of experiencing the stories and with the graphics.
Right.
If the graphic quality drops, or you have to wait 2 to 3 months for the story, you're not going to play, right? Uh,
Yeah.
there are a lot of in that sense, what's the word I'm thinking of? There are a lot of KPIs, right?
Right.
Key performance indicators
Right.
that people need to do. Where one, you need to have a constant user base. Two, you need to have a profit base, and then three, you need to have what's that? Yeah, it's the user interaction, that kind of thing. So you like a lot of measurements that I think gacha games do is like, how long they are able to keep you occupied playing their game in the 24 hours of a day.
Yeah.
Like if I can hit like 2 hours, if I can constantly ensure that each individual user is spending at least a minimum of 2 hours a day on my game, that's positive results, right?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the general consensus, and this is a bit on the psychological aspect of things, right? The
Mhm.
general rule is that the longer the game can keep you there, the higher
Yeah.
chance that you might be actually willing to spend on something.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Or you might be spent to reduce the amount of time that you need to spend in it.
Right. So yeah. But in any case, yeah. I think. Well, I mean, there's a number of things. There's one thing about this stream that I really wanted to get into, but we didn't manage to get into today.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about
Yeah.
when we come to talk about gachas and
Right.
monetization in that sense, I think.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the methods and the ecosystems, like as in like sort of like the the setup that some people do, like the how some games monetize and how they help players along the way and stuff.
Mhm.
There's this joke amongst the two of us that I was mentioning about how I did want to mention Raid Shadow Legends, not sponsored, and sort of as sort of a side gag to just to do it. And I think there's a small hidden part of me that just wanted to mention it so that it'd be part of like any hidden algorithms Twitch might have about Raid Shadow Legends, not sponsored. And
Great Shadow Legends.
Raid Shadow Legends not sponsored. Anyway, yeah, and showing it up on those algorithms, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
All jokes, yeah, all jokes on that aside. But there were genuinely mechanics that I really wanted to get into as well, because a large part of gacha games, after a while, I think one huge aspect of burnout for a lot of players who play with gacha games is is the issue of not getting what they want, like as you said, right?
I
And
think it's true, but I think the other side is with you've mentioned before as well is bloat. A
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of games
right,
that I've played for an extended period of time, my worry always becomes bloat
right,
because
right,
bloat means I end up feeling like I'm artificially forced to spend more just to keep up
right,
rather
right,
than yeah, because always the newest, shiniest character that comes out is the best.
right,
It will always be better than anything before. Because
right,
if it's not, no one's gonna pay for it. But
right,
if it is, that makes me feel that I might as well be a new user because if I started now instead of 2 years ago,
right,
I would have spent less. You
right.
know, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
that's a concern that we didn't really get into, but that should be talked about as well in terms of you
Yeah,
monetize it, but how do you take care of your older
yeah,
players and your new players and kind of thing.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, Art of Hikari actually mentions about the one which is like burnout is logging, just repeating doing the same things every day. That's actually that's I wouldn't necessarily call it burnout, but it is a reason why players stop playing, which is it gets stale and you feel like, oh, there's
Repetitive,
yeah,
right?
yeah, repetition, and there's like you feel it's a glass ceiling in a lot of live service games where it just feels like you're just stuck in a rut. It happens to me, by the way, also really quickly, and that's why actually I drop a lot of games. I just recently dropped Illusion Connect for the very same reason, because I played a bit and I saw myself like really really quickly. Get
We have a mutual friend that actually really enjoys it apparently.
Oh really? Oh, no, no, no. It's, to be fair, it's not a bad game. It's just that I
Mhm.
I come from a history of like a number of games, and including games that look very similar to Illusion Connect.
Right.
So, and Illusion Connect had a lot of clutter. I tend to become very sensitive towards clutter these days, because
Mhm. Mhm.
there's already a lot of clutter in the games that I usually am playing.
Yeah,
So
I think that's the same reason why I dropped the Azure Lane.
yeah,
That's another
absolutely.
gacha game
Yeah,
because it just felt repetitive where you're literally doing the same thing and even that satisfaction of like, yeah, you can just auto it. It's just too
that's not satisfaction.
yeah, just not a
That's not
satisfaction
satisfaction.
there. But the same time the reason for repetitive is they need you to keep occupied daily.
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing is, no developer can churn out completely new content
Correct, correct.
every single week without burning out
Right, right.
or causing bloat,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But coming back to the point that I wanted to make about like that burnout slash when it comes to the randomization of rewards, right, is
Yeah.
that some players do get genuinely and rightfully ultra frustrated when it comes to like rolling for characters, and you just don't get it after like your 30th or 50th roll. You're like, oh my god, what the hell is this game? Blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff.
At the same time, if
Right.
you've already spent $80, you're not going to be like, okay, I'm done with this game because you've already put in even if it's
Yeah,
$30 for some people it's like
yeah,
I've spent or if we come back to just let's
right.
say a monthly pack, right? A monthly pack, it's $7. I spent $7 on this game and for me to
Yeah,
just walk away it just doesn't feel satisfying,
yeah.
right? So you
Well,
still play it.
oh, I'm not gonna go engage in a discussion about the sunken cost fallacy. That is a very very dangerous debate.
That
But
is true, that is
yeah,
true.
but the the thing that wanted to get to was really much about how some games, including Raid Shadow Legends, not sponsored, um, uh, does this system where it allows you to like exchange certain units for a particular unit during one season
Hmm.
or another. So it's sort of another way to give you a it's not technically a pity system, because we did mention a lot about pity systems today,
But it
right?
gives you control, right?
Correct,
That's what you're
correct,
saying. Yeah.
exactly. It gives you control over the content that you're going to get. Like, oh, I'm going to trade you a bunch of these like spare units that I don't have, that I don't really need, and to get this extra bonus unit that I really wanted, that kind of thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, so there are a lot of other mechanics within the gacha ecosystem, or the genre itself, that I really, really, really wanted to cover today. But I think if we did, this would be like a 4 or 5 hour long session. but yeah, so today is very much about PT systems, soft PT systems, hard PT systems, as well as a bit of history on gacha games. Yeah, I hope everyone's enjoyed this little session. Um, if there's any further questions or if anything like anybody wants to bring up, I think we can hang out for another 5 minutes or so. If not, I think we're just going to call this session to an end if it's all right with you, Aaron. Unless there's any major
Yeah.
point that you want to bring up.
No, I mean, I'll probably just say that, if they found it interesting and they want to hear more, they could probably tell you to do a part two or something.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do a part two because, as I said, there's a lot of other systems and methods of which gacha games do sort of employ to help uh,
Yeah.
uh, the I want to use the term sort of mitigate the randomness, um, and there's a surprising amount of overlap between um, card games as well as gacha
Yeah,
games
which
as well.
we completely didn't touch on here.
Correct, correct.
That's
I
true.
really wanted to talk about, but there's just too much to talk about.
Yeah. And like I think amusingly you said mitigate the randomness, where the other side we can look at it as, how to keep players engaged in spending.
Correct, correct, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to once again not to take it in a not to approach it in too cynically or anything like that, but
Yeah.
just purely the mechanics of which to sort of make sure that players still get value for their dollar and not feel like they're just completely tossing it into the void and like a tribute to Aron Jesus. It's like
Just to think about how the Aron Jesus has actually become, like, a staple term in the gacha ecosystem is quite hilarious.
it's really amusing to me, by the way, because I think I was one of the first people that started using Aron Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there was another one that I kind of brought up before, but I couldn't remember. But anyway, if I do remember it, I'll mention it to you.
Sure,
But
sure.
yeah,
But
it's been fun. It's been fun having this conversation. I think that the hour and 42 minutes has actually passed surprisingly fast, and we could probably do go on for hours if there was the opportunity to do that.
yeah, it is going to be a very long night if we really did just leave it here. Yeah, it's 13 right now where we're at. So, I mean, I live in a shared house. I as much as I really want to continue this, um, doing energetic discussions about gacha in a shared place may not be very safe. All said and done.
You have
Uh,
someone banging on your door to shut
uh,
up.
okay, so mine is actually a worst case scenario. My setup is actually in the living room.
Oh,
So
that's even worse.
it just gets worse. Yes, it very much just gets worse.
Right.
But yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, but I guess if there are no other further questions, I guess we'll just I'm gonna call it an end to tonight. Thank you guys everyone for joining us. I hope you guys I hope this session has been an interesting session and at least a little bit educational for some of you guys. I really like doing these kind of sessions, especially when we're talking about like a bit of history of games development and and um, and sort of the evolution and sort of game mechanics or what I would consider to be engagement mechanics in either mobile games or any other games for that matter. So yeah, yeah, if you'd like to see more of this, I want to say please like and subscribe, but I'm not exactly sure where this is going to end up.
Please click the follow button if you enjoyed this,
Yes.
and if you are interested, you can follow. You can follow Jared on. Are you using on Facebook as your main
Well, so
point of interaction?
I think at some point I'm going to make a page, but at this point I haven't fully decided. This is still very experimental. But
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron, for that little bit. If you do like what I do here, please feel free to share a link to this video to your friends who you think might be interested in reading or listening to us talk 1.5 hours plus about gacha systems and shit. And yeah, and tell them about us. Support the channel. I am not earning money off this. This is completely just for the fun of it. Really, it really is because I do find this whole thing really fun. Um, if that ever changes, I will make it like obvious to everyone involved. But yes, if you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff, please do share the video and get people to follow the channel, and hopefully I'll be able to do more of this with you guys soon. Yeah, and with more speakers. I definitely want to get more and more people to come in here and talk about games and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be fun.
yeah. By the way, so I don't know what anyone else knows, and I'm going to close this literally really soon. This is literally the third time I'm saying bye, but this happens all the time. Just FYI, by the way. Um, Everyone I get to come here and talk with me on games, right, is always in one way or another related to the games industry. It's never purely a player. It's always a case where either you are working in games development or you report on games. In the case of Aron here, report on games and all this kind of stuff.
Although I'm slightly far removed, I haven't reported on gacha games specifically, but I do
Yeah.
like keep track of the industry, and but I try to keep it from more of a player perspective. So maybe you're skirting it
No,
slightly
no,
with
no.
me, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's good. Yeah,
No, but it's
yeah.
absolutely there, which is, it is a perspective. The point of the channel is to provide perspective and to talk about games in a way that I think a lot of platforms don't. So if you're
Hmm.
interested in the hope and my objective, at least with this channel, is to at least what I've come to realize is to at least provide perspective and to give at least an assortment of views. And to be fair, and in all honesty, a part of which is going to be mine. uh, I think that's kind of unavoidable. And yeah, and just hopefully be able to help everybody out to give a little bit of illumination and help everyone just engage with this entire industry a little bit better, either as a player or as a developer, that kind of thing. But yeah, yeah. Anyway, okay, that's it. I guess that's for tonight. Aaron, thank you very much for being a wonderful chat partner today.
Hey, I had fun, man.
Glad to know. Oh, and in case anyone's curious, all of the images today has been sourced. Sorry, not all, but most, if not all, of the images today is sourced by Aaron. Aaron has been a huge help on this one. Please do, if you are at home, give him a round of applause for supporting and taking the time out to come and talk to me about this today. And thank you guys very much for taking the time to join us on this whole thing today. And I hope to see you guys again soon, and hopefully next week at the same time. All right, that's all for me today then. Thank you and good night.